let's get your thoughts on the effectiveness of PPPs and the model that works for a place like Africa. Obviously, we know there's a huge infrastructure deficit. The World Bank estimates that we need as much as $90 billion to close that gap. What model do you think works best for Africa?
I would say anywhere in the world, there is what you need really. It's a good and fair and balanced risk sharing. I use all of those words because it is so important. Because in a public-private partnership, you have on one side the government, and the other side you have the private sector. Now, if you don't have a balanced risk sharing, at some point in time, it will, or the chances are very high that it will unravel. So that's you need, because if you look at it, in the beginning, the private investor, he is on the hook. He put his money, right? Or at least he has the leverage. He put his money. And then, it becomes on the hook, the government. He has already put his money, has the leverage. So if there was not a good understanding in between, it is bound to unravel at some point in time. Let's
talk more about that. Obviously, risk sharing implies risk management, and the world is a risky place to be nowadays. We've seen a global financial crisis, we've seen Greece, Italy, and the impact that is having on the world. These are things that we probably wouldn't be able to forecast 5 years ahead. But on the other hand, we do know that many PPPs are long-term projects. Talk to us about this risk sharing that you mentioned earlier. How does it work practically?
How does it work practically? It's that there are some risks that will be borne by the government naturally, and there are some risks that the private sector is supposed to take. If I were to take example of PPP, regardless of the sector, whether it's health or power or any other sector, as I mentioned earlier, the way we work, as I see on the advisory side, we will help with the government. The government is our client. We will work with the government, try to structure the proper framework and a project that is sound, that is viable. Then we will go out and we will bid out this project to potential investors. Investors will come and they will make their offer for a given concession. And when they make their offer, there will be also not only their technical competence, but also the financial capability of investing into that project. Once they win the bid, they will have to implement. So this is where when I mentioned the balanced risk sharing, because the government will provide, let's say the concession, let's say power utility is going into power generation with an IPP, will say, okay, you get a power purchase agreement for the next 15 years or 20 years. There are certain conditions. Now, the private investor will feel comfortable with that in theory and go and come and invest. So now, if one of the two parties, they don't respect, that agreement, or trying to take advantage of the other, during that period of time, it is bound to unravel. And as IFC, what we try to do is to set the proper framework and have a balanced structure in place. And that's where our advice to the government become key, and to attract investors.
Okay, talk to us a bit about some of the projects that you're involved in Nigeria. We do know that you're looking to build a hospital. You're involved in a project to build a hospital in Cross River State, and then of course there's the second River Niger bridge that you're also involved in.
Yes. Well, project in Nigeria, you mentioned the Cross River State. We are going to, the best way actually to talk about the Cross River State will be to take a recent project that we did in Lesotho. And in Lesotho, basically, we took a hospital, what used to be called the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. It's been renamed since then. Was public hospital. It's been privatized. And there is a group called Sepong, which actually a combination of Netcare, a South African group, with other partners from Lesotho. And they won that concession to now build a new private hospital. And they invested $100 million into this project. So it is a fantastic hospital. Really, it's a first-class hospital. And the population of Lesotho will benefit greatly, because they will go and continue to have actually services now, better services, improved services. Netcare or Sepong, that group, they will come, they will provide, for the doctors, they have the equipment. I mean, I visited the hospital. As I said, it's a first-class hospital, and they will get access to all of those services and paying more or less the same amount of money they were paying before.
So you anticipate a similar project in Cross River State, obviously?
That is, the whole idea is really in Cross River State to do something similar.
Okay.
And yes.
All right, let's talk a bit about the flow of funds globally right now. Obviously, many PPPs need funds to get going, and right now, the big word is globalization, looking at investments across the world, and Africa obviously is competing with other regions for money. Give us your thoughts on PPPs in Africa and their ability to access, or should I say, attract foreign capital for these projects.
I think personally, yes. I mean, they have a good ability to do it. Indeed, there's those issues, as you mentioned, the global crisis. You may not have so many so-called quote-unquote Western firms that may come to bid, but you will have other type of partnerships. We did the Lomé port in Togo recently, which was very successful, and actually this year, fiscal year 12 for us in Africa, is probably bound to be one of our best years of IFC in Africa in the infrastructure sector. We have been extremely aggressive as an institution. Infrastructure is a huge priority for us, and we have put in place a number of initiatives. We have many people on the ground. We are looking for projects. We are there to finance them. We are supporting them, and we are finding some good private sponsors. And I can tell you, we are doing infrastructure projects in many countries of sub-Saharan Africa.